Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So the changes with Mei and Reaper, d.va and Zenyatta have gone through. And this is a lot of changes. We actually highlighted this at the time on the PTR. Now and again we see, a change to, for example, Mei on her own. And then everybody talks about that and the implications of the game. And even a small change to one hero can have a big impact on how the environment of competitive Overwatch can look. Most especially at the higher tiers. And most of you know by now, I rabble on about it every single time. Whatever the pros do doesn't really affect us in ladder, but there is a bit of a trickle down mechanic. And if you want to improve and keep on top of competitive Overwatch and what heroes are good and stuff, then it all starts from that ripple effect from these changes. So today I'm going to go over which heroes basically get indirectly buffed and nerfed because of all of these changes. And as I said, that was with one change that we could see a big impact. So imagine four, two of which on the two most popular heroes in the game being nerfed. So we'll discuss whether those nerfs are really enough to make these heroes a little bit less obnoxious and a little bit less OP to an extent, and whether the Mei Reaper changes are basically good to break the game for a bit. So let's go over the winners. Let's start with the positive news, and I guess the first two of course are Reaper and Mei. These changes are pretty significant. Mei being able to freeze targets as a pierce, meaning that she can freeze multiple targets at once, very much like Winston's Tesla cannon now, in comparison to before for Mei where it was like Symmetra's beam. It only locks onto one target, now it hits multiple targets at once, and it's going to be really annoying to deal with. Mei's popularity isn't the best anyway, but for a defense hero and for a hero that has a very specific style of play, I try to sort of cut down on the word niche because I don't think it's fair to call these heroes that are people's mains kind of useless half the time. But most people would understand that Mei's usage is somewhat situational. Some maps she's really good on, some game modes she's really good on, but she can suffer on certain other kinds of maps and in other kinds of teams. Like say you could be defending on Hanamura first point where Mei is exceptionally good, but if the rest of your team play and dive, it's going to cause problems for your game especially, and it's going to be really difficult to play the style of Overwatch that you want to play on this hero. But I digress. I think these Mei changes are good, but I am worried that they're going to be on the side of annoying to deal with. Being frozen isn't a fun mechanic, but that's what Mei's all about, right? So it's different to the hack is what I mean, because when you hack somebody, you take complete control out of their abilities, but with Mei, if you get frozen, to an extent, you just need to be careful, right? The same applies to Reaper. Both of these heroes are death ball kinds of heroes, and we'll go on to that in a second. But the point I'm trying to make is if you get killed by a Reaper or a Mei, it's not that it's somewhat your fault, it's just more that you are out of position, and you need to play smarter against these heroes. Much like you change up your position and play a little bit more conservatively if the enemy team had a Widowmaker. You see the pros hiding behind rocks, trying not to peek and get shot in the head. But for Mei and Reaper, you need to give them a little bit of distance. And it is annoying at the lower tiers because these heroes are really good when a Symmetra or a Mei or a Reaper just runs at you. It feels like there's very little you can actually do about it. So at this point in time, I wouldn't say that these changes are going to be obnoxious. If we do see a complaint from people like pros or anybody else about these heroes, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do feel it's worth giving it a little bit of time before we, basically say that these changes are too much and these heroes are too strong. And even then, we might see it like with Sombra, where there's just a couple of little nerfs here or there that make her a little bit more balanced. And now the Sombra that we've got today isn't as strong and as annoying to deal with as it was before, just because of some small, minute nerfs. But anyway, there's the two main heroes that are winners here, but who else does it affect? Well, as I said, Deathball is the prominent pick here, so I think Brigitte is certainly worth a mention, not even in competitive yet, but she synergizes perfectly with these two heroes in this game currently. So Mei, Reaper, Brigitte are going to have some nice coordination going on there because they all like to fight up close and personal. So of course this means that it would be paired up well with a Lucio. Lucio wants to speed boost his targets in, and it helps out Lucio when all of his targets are going to stick together rather closely, and that's exactly what Reaper, Mei, Brigitte all want to do. The mention of tanks is a bit of an iffy one, but I do think that this goes positively towards Zarya and a little bit of Roadhog as well. Both of these tanks suffer from being very slow and very difficult to get into the fight, but if the rest of your team is running something similar, like the Reaper, like the Mei, like the Brigitte, it all synergizes really nicely, and there is a certain theme to this which I'll get onto with the losers. Moira again is another healer that could work with these and has perfect synergy as well with Brigitte, who can struggle on the healing front, but Moira can kind of cover all bases in that extent. So all of the the heroes that I've mentioned so far can be a composition together if they wanted to, and they all do the same kind of things. McCree, again, is another hero that suits this, but also it's the heroes that somewhat counter these heroes that are gonna have a better time as well. Most especially Pharah, most especially Junkrat, most especially Hanzo. All of these heroes counter Brigitte to an extent, but it also counters Mei and Reaper because their effective range isn't enough to deal with a Pharah in the air or Junkrat or Hanzo in the backline or on the high ground. There's very little that you can do as these heroes, so of course, picking Junkrat, Hanzo or Pharah is a good way to counter these death ball kinds of compositions, most especially Junkrat. Widowmaker gets a decent mention as well considering how popular she is in the Pro League and how it's very difficult to stop her, but I can certainly say that a Mei Reaper isn't going to do much if there's a good Widowmaker on the high ground popping shots. But they are all the winners. I'm sure there's more that I would add to this list, but if you think I missed somebody, do let me know in the comments below. As we go to the losers, which is a short list, but I think this is very damaging to some heroes. We'll go over the ones that have actually been nerfed, d.va and Zenyatta. Blizzard are really worried about these heroes being too strong and too prominent. I feel I need to do more than these changes. I hope that these changes are enough to make d.va and Zenyatta a little bit worse. I don't want to see them completely nerfed to the ground, but that would be my d.va bias coming through. But it's more that these heroes are popular because of the dive meta and how prominent and strong that is currently. And that's why all of these buffs to an extent have affected Death Ball heroes, because Blizzard want Death Ball to become a much stronger composition. It can actually go in contention with dive. Death Ball is very much like triple tanks where everybody stays close together, but I think Blizzard don't really want that to be the strategy that goes against dive because it feels that that's always how it happens. The game seems to flick between dive meta or triple tank or quad tank. That's really the only two metas that we've had recently in the past. We got cool stuff like Beyblade meta in Season 2, but we haven't really seen much since. Other than maybe, I guess, the Mercy and Junkrat meta, which was obnoxious, but it did provide a nice change of scenery when all we saw up until then was dive meta for so long. I feel that these changes are going to negatively impact these heroes, of course, because they are nerfs, but I don't think we're going to be seeing d.va and Zenyatta losing any real popularity. But maybe the buffs to Death Ball are going to be enough to make sure that these heroes do drop a little bit in popularity, because they are the most popular heroes in the game currently. Another hero I do want to highlight, and I will highlight this more in another video, is Reinhardt. Reinhardt has gone up in popularity in the pro scene, especially with triple tanks being used a little bit more, and the kind of maps that we saw in the Overwatch League. However, Mei Reaper will give you a horrible time. Basically, all of the heroes that I mentioned in the winners category are going to give Reinhardt a massive headache. Granted, Reinhardt can be used in these Death Ball compositions, but you rely on your team so much to sort of look after you, and there's very little you can do when a Reaper and a Mei get speed boosted into you. You just kind of have to grim and bear it. Not only that, he's a hero that's known for having lots of different problems with Earth Shatter, with his charge. A lot of issues that Blizzard are still looking to fix, but as I mentioned, we are going to go over this more in another video, but Reinhardt's definitely on that losers list in my opinion, because he really struggles against some of these heroes that have been buffed. I also need to say that most tanks as well, like d.va's on this list, Reinhardt, albeit I did say Zarya and Roadhog are on the winners list, but that's if you're on the right side of the Meis, the Reapers, the Lucios, the Brigittas. Being a tank main in this meta is going to be really difficult. Reaper is already kind of problematic, and I'm quite surprised that he's been buffed to the extent that he has been, because he is really strong looking at it on the PTR. And after playing a little bit of him as well, it is really difficult to actually deal with, so I wait with bated breath as a tank main for sure. And I guess also the losers list would be just dive meta. That's the idea, that's what all of these changes have come to fruition with, and why Brigitte was added into the game at the time that she was. Simply because she is all about having a Death Ball kind of composition where you're running it into the team, trying to make it a little bit stronger against dive, so dive isn't the prominent meta anymore. So to an extent, this does nerf your likes of Genji and Tracer to an extent, and Sombra, where you're running these big beefy targets onto an objective. But as I said, this is a much smaller list for the losers, but it has a much bigger impact on these heroes if the game goes the way that I'm predicting it to. And so far with these winners and losers lists, we've been pretty good at this, but do let us know what you think in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree, whether you feel that the changes are too much for Reaper and Mei, whether the nerfs aren't enough for d.va and Zenyatta. Let me know below in the comments, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, take care, we'll see you then.